It's time for some more Pontus campaign commentary. Last time we attacked Rome from the north, taking down one of their main armies and gaining our entry point to their core territory. I also wanted to stage landings at the southern end of the peninsula. The first part of that was to deal with an army at sea, although the battle turned out to be not quite as easy as I thought and we lost Mithridates too. Still, most of our invading land units were alive after the fight, so now it's time to try and force our way into Taurus. How easy it's going to be to get inside the city depends entirely on how much space there is inside the walls to land units. There was enough space for 3 ships to land, and unlike in Attila, once you've landed those ships you can't land any more at the same point. So what I've had to do is leave most of the stuff just floating around while 3 units go and land inside the town, 3 units of veteran hoplites to try and capture a gate. That will allow us to then bring the army in by landing it somewhere else and walking it up to the gate. The first thing I'm doing as I land is actually running away from the enemy's main force, which was guarding the western gate, because my fleet is sitting there. They probably think I'm about to land. I was willing to leave that as the situation, so all of those units would just be indisposed, while my 3 units of hoplites actually went and captured the eastern part of the city, and now I'm preparing a few other units to go and land over on the eastern beaches so I can go in through the eastern gate with them, leaving enough stuff behind to make sure most of the enemy's army actually stays over there in the west and lets me do this. There was though a few units, a few guys just hanging around on top of the eastern gate, so I'm going to have to hack my way through them. I put my hoplites in phalanx formation on the wall to start fighting them. That should be a fight we'll win eventually, but it will be very slow. I can use my other 2 units to speed things up though, by rushing around on the ground to the back of the enemy's position, going up the towers over here and neutralizing the gate so the towers aren't firing at us. With that sorted out, all we can really do is wait for us to defeat these units and then we'll be able to capture the gate. But note that I've already used 2/3 of the battle just to get here. It may not have looked like it, but I just condensed 40 minutes down into less than 2 minutes of footage, since essentially nothing happened. And eventually, when we finally did take down those units, there was even less time left. I had about 15 minutes left to win the battle from here. And I still hadn't bothered to actually land those forces over on the beach, because I did suspect that this was going to now be impossible because of the time limit. It's going to take us at least half of the remaining time to walk to the victory point, let alone actually fight and take it. So with that in mind, I thought, well, this operation has been a failure, but it can still be salvaged. Because we've just captured this gate, we can now walk out through it and actually leave the town. The enemy army, by the way, never reacted to my attacks here, although I think if I had gone towards the victory point, they are scripted to then run back and fight for it, so I don't think I could have swept it from under their noses, and there were actually a couple of units on the victory point, like their general I would have had to face. So anyway, here's what I'm doing. We're leaving. These 3 units will just walk out the gate they captured, and the ships will sail to the edge of the map. Our hoplites can just walk away now, and because Rome 2's weird, that actually counts as them getting back on their ships and leaving. So after the fight, they'll be back inside the fleet. As you can see though, the retreating actually glitched out, a classic Empire Total War glitch that's made its way up to Rome 2 there, and the men started running back into town. Luckily, the fleet left before they could go and get themselves killed anywhere. A decisive defeat for us. That was a 55-minute attempt that was ultimately wasted there. But luckily we did get away with most of our army. Not all of it though, because when you lose a battle, it applies the check to see which unit should be deleted because they have too few troops in it, and when you lose it's much more strict than when you win. So that means units that survived previous battles where we won are now deleted, just because they didn't have enough troops, even though they may not have taken part in that fight at all, and indeed they didn't. So that's pretty annoying. That's the punishment, I suppose, for daring to try and make that landing. So we're now forced back, and with all that over, I decided I'm not going to actually bother going for Taurus with this fleet. It probably is possible to take it, because you could just go around to the south, land on the beaches, and attack over land where you could bring ladders. But that's going to take forever. We'll just go back, refit the army, and then sail over to support our attacks further north. I actually completed the mission to subjugate or defeat so and so many factions, which I thought I wouldn't be able to do. Apparently I'd already done it, only just received it in the previous turn. We get another mission, it's just something or other. I'm going to ignore the missions now. My official objective for this campaign is to conquer Rome and defeat the Empire, just so we can know that Pontus has taken its place at the centre of the world. So on that topic, we need to start thinking about invading Latium, the Roman core provinces. My spy reveals that there's nothing really around to stop us. They've got this half stack here, or quarter stack really, and it does have a few of their new units, so they're starting to modernise, and they've even somehow got some veteran legionaries, despite legionaries only just being invented. I guess it's legionaries made out of old veteran troops or something. Before we go in though, I do need to take down this Roman army that's behind us right now. It came down from the mountains a couple of turns ago, I think, and it's just been standing there. Luckily, I've now got Mithridates III, who went east to reinforce for a bit and is now back with his army at full strength. And Mithridates is still at close to full strength, so we can just move him back to team up with his wee lad. And now we have a massive advantage over these guys, which I didn't actually expect here. I think it's because the army is composed quite a lot out of auxiliary troops, which are inferior, doesn't have many of the core Roman troops, just a couple of units of legionaries. So we'll just get rid of them, nothing to worry about, and that's the end of that. So with them dead, we can now focus entirely on offensive operations. There are no signs of the Romans attacking us right now. Let's try and take the fight to them. As we come into autumn, I learned my war target's been invalidated. That's good news. It means someone has gone and captured Segestica, as I requested of our allies. I've got a new mission to go and take Noria, but I'll just get our allies to do that in a moment. For whatever reason, I had expected the Scordisci to be the ones to go and make this attack, but I'm not allied to them. I was just under the impression that I was, so I was confused as to why the war target wasn't being fulfilled by them. Anyway, so I just set the new war target to Noria, just so that all of the Roman territory off to our flank can be taken care of, and we'll focus on Italia. Now, while I was here, I also noticed that the only real threat to our empire at the moment is that the nomads could invade from the north. Everyone else really likes us, or already our allies or something. So just to secure up our position, since we have the money, I'm going to throw together a quick army of slingers and spearmen up in the north, a perfect cheap counter to nomad attacks. So here we are now in the next turn. It's time to start moving into Italy properly, and I've got Ariobarzanes and his force now refit and ready to move out again, and we're just going to support our attack by sailing across the Aegean further north to land at the docks that will also be attacking via the land routes. In winter, the attack begins, and the enemy force that was inside has since run away. You can see it down there to the south. So this is going to be a pretty easy start to our invasion by the looks of things. They don't really want to defend. I could have taken it just with our fleet and Ariobarzanes, but we do have the two Mithridates up here ready to support. Struggled to click on Mithridates there because there are too many Roman agents just surrounding him. They're spamming these veterans, although they're never doing anything. I think maybe they don't have the money to do the actions, but they're just coming after us anyway. So we come in and auto-resolve this battle. There we go, that's the first capture in Latium, sorted out with no problem. There was no sign of any Roman response during their turn. Another banquet's coming up, might as well go to that. We'll just keep going to them if they keep throwing them. Someone's gaining influence from this, but our politics are completely stable, so my policy of ignoring it completely has been pretty successful so far. Anyway, our fleet's going to take Ariobarzanes down south to besiege the next port along the coast, and I might as well move Mithridates III to support this attack. I wanted to attack right now, using Ariobarzanes to lead it so that he would then be put onto land, but the attack order is messed up. You have to click on the edge of the settlement, not the middle, to make a naval assault, and it got interpreted as an order to make a land assault, which then sends the fleet to go put the army somewhere where it can do that. Overall, everything was messed up, and I just left that under siege so I can come back next turn to continue my plan. But we can now move Mithridates I down to actually besiege Rome itself. The path was clear, there's just a single general inside. It's got a pretty serious garrison, so the balance bar's in their favour, but still garrison units aren't very powerful, so I was confident we can do this with just Mithridates. I'm going to start putting some siege equipment together because we certainly need to overcome the downside of bringing so many pikes to a walled city assault. We need to make sure we have a way of getting in, essentially. Now here you can see there was finally a Roman army that appeared into view. It's coming down from the Alps to attack Medland, the Insubres' territory. We're allied to them, but we can't help them right now. It does suggest the Romans might be making a push down towards the rear of our advancing front, so I'd like to try and stop them if I can. First, I'm going to fiddle around back down here with this naval siege that I'm trying to get going. I almost forgot about my plan to actually have Ariobarzanes lead the attack so he would be put into the settlement, and the main reason to do that is it means that Mithridates III won't lose his movement points by moving into the settlement, and Ariobarzanes will, and that just means Mithridates can go somewhere else. So once that's finally arranged, we will send Mithridates III back up north to now attend to the situation of the Romans coming down from there. In a couple of turns we'll be in position to support Medland, so if that siege up there keeps going, we may be able to actually save our allies as well. And at the same time, Ariobarzanes will come onto land to just defend in this general area, although our spies have already revealed there are no more Roman armies in Italy, so we're actually probably going to go on the offensive there. Now, in the Roman turn, the Romans inside Rome, the Romans, if you will, decide to sally out and attack Mithridates, the absolutely wrong choice, because our pike-based army will have a much better time in a field battle, will certainly win this fight, and I was so outraged by how the enemy was ruining my fun here, I'm actually going to do a reverse safe scum tactic, where we're going to go back in order to make the game harder. Now that we know the enemy is going to do something stupid, we're going to be nice to them and actually make the siege assault in the turn before. So we're only going to have 2 ladders and a tortoise as our siege equipment, and hopefully that will be enough. We need to secure a way for us to use all of our pikes in this fight, so essentially we need to make sure the fight doesn't mainly take place on the wall or at the walls. I'm attacking from 2 directions, the southwest and northwest, and both groups have different objectives. The northern group has most of the pikes in it, and their objective is going to be to break open the wall and take those pikes inside. Firstly, I was using my ballista to attack from range. I thought I might try and use it to bring down the enemy ballista here, because that ballista could be a threat to my tortoise. Fortunately, its arc of fire meant it actually couldn't see me, so we were safe, and we'll need that tortoise to break open a piece of the wall and get the pikemen inside. So for now I'm just going to shoot out this scorpion, since it can actually hit me from where I am now, was inflicting casualties, so I wanted to kill that early on. Meanwhile, the southern group will be advancing with our Galatian troops and the light troops like archers and our war dogs with our 2 ladders to try and capture a gate. We were really lucky in that only 1 unit of militia was guarding the southern gate, even though they could have seen me deploying here, and the AI does get to see where you put your units before it picks where it puts its units. So I guess they just decided not to bother with this particular front, so now 2 units of Galatians will easily overpower this mob unit and be able to capture part of the wall and then go on towards the gate. At the same time, I've destroyed that scorpion thing over here, and now I'm going to move my ballista closer so that we can be right up at the edge of the tower range and get some more accurate shots onto the towers to use our ammunition more effectively, and the tortoise will very slowly start moving into position as well. So now we can see the fight with this militia is over, and our Galatians rush over to capture this gatehouse, and still no sign of any reaction from further into the city. So it seems we are going to be able to get our southern attack group inside and beyond the walls, although really it's the northern attack group that we most need to get beyond the walls to do damage. So now I just need to focus on this. Our ballista are going to try and bring down this tower right here, just because its capture point was hard to reach, so the towers near the gate were less of a priority. We eventually succeeded, but it did take longer than I expected, and we lost virtually all of our ammo to do that. So now the ballista can't achieve anything else, and we'll just have to start our attack, meaning the pikemen who are pushing the tortoise will be subject to attacks from the 2 remaining towers. Unfortunate, but really nothing we can do right now. We just have to tank it, and luckily for us, this is now a nice upgraded and experienced pike unit that is pretty well able to tank ranged fire as it moves into position. Once we get closer, javelins start coming down because many of the enemy swordsmen up there can throw jabs. But still, we haven't taken so many losses that we can't just keep going. In fact, we took far fewer casualties than I expected making this move. Once we're here, it takes no time at all to actually get rid of the wall. 2 hits and down it goes. The tortoise is super powerful. Now this act actually means you can't use the tortoise again. I think in earlier versions of Rome 2, maybe before Emperor Edition, you could actually pick up the tortoise again and move it to attack a different part of the wall, but for some reason it became impossible to interact with it after I attacked this, and a message came up saying it had been destroyed even though it actually hasn't been. It's still got full health. So overall, I think it might just be a bit glitchy, or they changed the design. In this case it doesn't matter because we don't want to attack any more of the wall. We want to get out of here, use the breach we've made to try and run out of range of the towers before we lose any more pikemen, and just see how the enemy react to this attack. We want them to come down off the wall so we can get them to in some way attack the front of our pike phalanx. They did start coming down from the walls, but they're not necessarily reacting to my troops coming into the town. They weren't coming to block the breach or anything, and my troops are going to be able to rush over here. I'm rushing to this specific position where we'll have a nice choke point that's just out of range of the towers, where I hoped I might be able to get the enemy to attack me, but you can actually see they're not really paying any attention, at least most of them aren't. They're running down the main road back deeper into the city. I thought that what they might actually be doing is coming around to attack this little courtyard I'm in from a different direction, because there is the opportunity to do that, or at least it looks like there is right here, so I'm using 1 unit of pikes to block that other path. Although, as I discovered, they weren't doing that. They just walked straight past this set of stairs, and it was about this point in the battle I discovered those stairs are actually impassable. That road is just a red herring. You can't go from the main road to that courtyard. The enemy are just falling back towards the capture point now, so that's inconvenient. We're not going to be able to catch up with them, so we'll have to let them go. Here are the stairs in question. Really thought they were passable until I inspected it in detail with the mouse over them, and then it tells you the details. So anyway, our pikes will have to come back over to capture the main gate. That will just allow us to move around in this area in peace. They did leave behind some slingers on top of the gate, so I'm going to have to kill them. But with 6 or so units of pikes, even attacking in an unfavourable situation for them, we'll be able to bring those guys down. I did learn during this fight that these towers can actually shoot internally into those little corridors. I guess they have murder holes. Didn't know that. That's interesting to discover. You learn something every day. Anyway, we will capture the towers and the gatehouse and then move on to look for more targets further into the town. At the same time, our group coming in from the south has met no opposition. We've made it all the way up to the Circus Maximus now. I'm advancing in a nice cautious formation with our melee infantry surrounding the ranged guys as we go up the main road towards the Colosseum, and from that position we'll actually be just behind the enemy's capture point and we'll be in a position to start thinking about attacking it. It also reveals to us, now that we're closer, where a lot of the enemy's units are. We can see them sitting there on the capture point. Our pikes are now coming into the avenue that leads up to that capture point. This, I guess, is like the main avenue of the city where all of the official buildings are, so a nice fitting place for a showdown. The enemy are being quite careful to defend this causeway, but their force is very split up, so it looks like we're going to be facing them in waves as we fight our way up towards the main Senate building, I suppose, at the end of it. I was actually caught by surprise here though, because I was microing the other group and didn't notice the enemy charging forwards to attack my pikes. So we're all caught out of formation. It's a huge mess. I just about started forming the phalanxes after the melee started, so we got most of them in formation. But yeah, not looking very good there. I eventually decided to shuffle around and try and make this look a bit nicer. I'm going to pull most of the units backwards to get out of the melee, leaving just 2 units facing off against those swords, and even there I can still rearrange them to make it look a bit nicer and get more pikes onto the enemy. We're still not completely aligned here, as you can see, but it's better than it was before. It almost looks like this wall would protect the flank of my phalanx there, but it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. It would be very nice and tactical if it did. So we'll just have to leave that fight going. We'll try and grind our way through those swords. The enemy did bring over a couple of units of slingers from elsewhere, so that's inconvenient. Now that we're stuck in position, we are a pretty big target for ranged attacks. In particular, the unit just behind the front here, who I've actually got facing the wrong direction for some reason, so they can't use their shields. While that was happening, our southern group has now made it to a position where our archers can sit on this hill and are just about in range of a few enemies near the capture point. My Galatians will set up to prevent any potential enemy counterattacks, and now we can start whittling down this unit here just to weaken it before we make an attack. It wasn't especially effective, we're too far away and the enemy does have decent shields by the looks of things, but eventually that will do damage. Back with the pikes, the enemy tried to outflank us by moving a unit down this little alleyway on the edge of the road, but another unit of pikes will just stop them. The swordsmen who were attacking us at first are now falling back, and the enemy seem to be indecisive about whether they should send other units to fight us. Most of their spears are just running around. They do have other spears though, being very careful to stop my cavalry from coming in to attack the enemy slingers. They were pretty good about this, defending those approaches, which I thought was impressive for the AI, probably a mistake in fact though. Now I move closer with our Galatians to tempt the enemy into a fight here, a fight where we'll have a nice advantage. Our Galatians are better than the enemy in melee, and our archers just behind the front line will be bombarding the enemy the whole time, inflicting plenty of damage to make sure we win. The first couple of guys to test our defences are just taken out, and then the units finally commit to this fight. They kept running away, as you can see. That's an old Rome 2 glitch from back when it first came out that seems to still be around sometimes, where the enemy runs backwards and forwards in front of targets rather than attacking them. It's still happening here, as you can see, these spearmen running up and down, taking arrow fire, while the units who were fighting at the front are now just completely defeated since we had such superior troops available to us there. Some jabs being thrown forwards, that's probably doing a bit more damage to us, but they only have a few jabs, these swordsmen, so we can just take that and continue to hold our position, while our archers are just killing loads of these guys as they run about in a nice glitchy blob, and sometimes the volleys hit them from behind where the shields don't block arrows and it does plenty of extra damage. Their generals running forward now to take part in this fight and perhaps rally his men to be less indecisive and finally make a push into our front line, but they're not going to be able to do it. They have similar numbers to us but inferior quality, so we just have to leave our men to win the melee. Meanwhile, the spears further down the road are now engaging our pikes as we started pushing forwards, and because they were drawn into fights there, it cleared up a bit of space for our cavalry to start moving around, so we can bring in these Ligurian cav to run up the main causeway towards those slingers in the distance. I'm going to ignore the closer slingers and send my Pontic cav to fight them later. Although actually, I didn't get the chance at first to go after these slingers because the enemy general came back from the other fight to counterattack my cav. He was very concerned by this, but we do have them outnumbered by roughly 2-1 here, and the enemy's cav weren't particularly good on their charge. That means we killed a load to start with, and we'll just have a nice favourable melee here. It gets better and better because the enemy kept trying to leave the melee and we just killed them as they were going. I think this guy here might have been the enemy general, not sure. He just seemed to die of a heart attack after a while as he realised he was surrounded. A very dangerous situation, and that was the end of that. So now our cav are in a nice position to attack. I was also planning to do this very cunning move. I had sent my war dogs on a very convoluted route through the city that would eventually make them come out behind the enemy's main position at the capture point. Unfortunately, they're arriving too late really because our cav are already here, and most of the enemy's army has now been defeated. Our Pontic cav over here are taking out the slingers who were bothering our pikes, so we've generally just won in that sector. And as the cav rear attack the last enemy troops fighting with our Galatians, that little bit of the fight's going to come to an end and we are going to be very, very victorious indeed. The enemy trying to escape can't do it because our out of ammunition archers are just going to block them and get plenty of kills there. The fight isn't over because the spears fighting our pikes back down the road actually didn't rout, but I could just move forwards and take the victory point now, and that does bring the fight to an end. It's a decisive victory. So I think the fight for Rome there probably was harder than it would have been if I fought them in the the as the Romans wanted to do, so I guess I got what I wanted, but it still wasn't all that difficult in the end, just because the enemy's troops weren't all that good, and the city is so big that we always had the chance to go around them and outflank them all the time. There's Mithridates himself, doing the honour of capturing the point at the end, and we will be occupying the city as a statement to the world that Rome is now on its knees, right in front of us, of course. Mithridates getting to level 10, he's now max rank, a nice prize for capturing Rome. Now, this is kind of the end of the campaign because I think the Roman Empire is just going to fall apart. They don't really have any troops, there's no hope left for them at this point. But I will do at least one more part. I'm going to play on and see what happens from here, and perhaps just make another video that essentially gives some closure. We'll try and finish off the Romans and just see if anything happens that might challenge us. There are so many small factions around now that we could gradually gain more and more territory without challenging any big empires and just become impossible to defeat, as you tend to do in Total War games. And even if we did just say declare war on the Seleucids right now, we'd beat them eventually, even if we lost all of our starting territory to their position advantage. So anyway, I will see you for one more part and then perhaps for something else after that.